Alright, so here's the deal. I very much wanted to sit down in front of my higher quality camera and record a full-length review for The Running Man, but I've been super busy lately and just didn't get around to it, so that's why I'm filming this one handheld style. I apologize for that, but I wanted to get something out for this movie since I've been kind of mulling it over for 3 or 4 days now. Alright, so let's do this. This is a movie that I was very excited for, mostly because I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. I grew up watching the Cornetto trilogy, Baby Driver is so awesome, and I'll even defend Last Night in Soho to my dying breath, which I know a lot of people did not care for that. There hasn't been a single Edgar Wright movie that I would say is anything less than great. And this is the second time that this Stephen King story, which I have not read, is being adapted to the big screen. The first time was in 1987 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not a huge fan of that version of the story. It's fine, I guess, but I was interested to see what they could do in terms of upgrading the material. And it stars Glen Powell, who I think is exceedingly likable. I totally am down for seeing him lead more action films. So this had a lot of ingredients going for it. So walking out of the theater, I was kind of at a loss for words as to what went wrong here, because this is a very disappointing movie. It's not a terrible film by any stretch of the imagination, but as a huge Edgar Wright fan, I was let down. So The Running Man is set in a dystopian America in the near future. The country has turned into an authoritarian hellscape in which a majority of citizens are living in poverty. Ben Richards, played by Powell, desperately needs medicine for his sick daughter, and so he makes the difficult choice to enroll in The Running Man, a deadly game show in which contestants must survive on the streets for 30 days while professional assassins hunt them down. And other members of the public can also report you to these assassins and earn money for doing so. This is not only the year for dystopian thrillers about authoritarianism and graphic spectacle being used to control public opinion, but also a huge year for Stephen King adaptations. We just had The Long Walk come out back in August, and it had very similar intentions. I think the premise for this movie is great, and one of my favorite things about it is the way that it comments on the media's ability to misshape the truth into whatever narrative they want the public to believe. As time passes, Ben discovers that the game is rigged. There's a reason that no one has made it through those 30 days. I like that in this version, Ben isn't forced into the game, he actively chooses to participate. It just goes to show the desperation and the lengths to which people will go to earn money for things that they need in a world that is just never going to help them. It is a competently directed film, it looks fine. I like some of the needle drops in the first act. I would say, maybe even the first two acts, do a good job of setup and kind of giving us some dumb action fun. Yet somehow this is by a clear mile the most stylistically muted film in Wright's career. He's practically unrecognizable. You know, most of his movies just have that kinetic editing, that colorful poppy action, and this just feels very stale and commercialized. It also gave me tonal whiplash on the regular. It does clearly want to give the story more thematic heft and emotion than that original from the 80s, but then it also does want to go for that 80s cheese pastiche. Someone will die a horrific death, and then the next scene Glen Powell is cracking one-liners. And it would be different if the deaths were over the top and played for laughs, but they're presented in this film in a gritty, pretty brutal manner. Movies can absolutely blend different tones, but this doesn't pull off the balance very well. I have other issues with the story too, and I'm glad that they wanted to make it more accurate to the source material, but why make it 30 days? That just creates more problems for you as a filmmaker because you can't tell a story over 30 days and make it not feel like it's condensed. The pacing is all over the map. It has this stop and go quality to it where there will be an action sequence and then Glen Powell goes on a side quest with a random supporting character for 10 minutes, only for that character to then die or disappear altogether, never to be seen again.
Hunt him down!
Even Michael Cera, who I would say has the biggest chunk out of the supporting characters, was kind of wasted. I wish there was more of him in the movie, and although he does serve a purpose, that's the best I can say about the supporting cast. A lot of these other characters just come and go, and they're forgotten about. Emilia Jones comes to mind. She shows up at a point, and the way she was utilized made me think, you know, this character probably should have been introduced earlier. It's just frustrating to see so much talent go to waste, whether we're talking about Lee Pace, William H. Macy, or Katie O'Brien. I think they all do a decent job with what they're given, but they're not given much. Also, the third act is way too long. You're going to see a lot of people complain about that, and I absolutely agree. It has about 10 of its own plot twists in that last 30 minutes, and at a certain point, it just kind of lost me. On the upside, the action is fun when the movie gets around to it. Josh Brolin is great as the producer of the game show, and Coleman Domingo absolutely steals the show, literally, as the talk show host. I think he was the one character in this movie that feels totally at home in an Edgar Wright film. And Glen Powell is really great too. I think he's a super likable leading man, and this movie is not a complete train wreck. It's just very frustrating to watch a movie with so much potential go off on these random tangents and fail to keep its eye on the prize. I'm gonna give The Running Man 2.5 stars. I think this wound up being a very different, much slower film than the trailer painted a picture of, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. A movie can be different than what the trailer tells you it's going to be and still be good, but it was definitely a downgrade from the tone that I was getting from the trailer.
I'm still here, you shit eaters.
So those are my thoughts on the film. If you do happen to catch it, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more content like this. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.